Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to this security briefing. Today, we are honored to welcome Sarit Zehavi, who's running the Alma Center, and we're going to hear about Alma Center. And many of the people online today had the chance to meet Sarit in different trips they made to Israel, from the legislator trip that we organized, and other state legislators and chief of staff and even mayors that are today on this briefing. As you all know, the situation in Israel is extremely complicated. We've been dealing with Hamas in the past 10 months. Obviously, Hamas is not on its own. It was supported by the Houthis, by Hezbollah, and by Iran. And recently, the threats from Iran and Hezbollah has grown tremendously because Israel took the responsibility to protect the state of Israel, to retaliate. And as we are here in Israel, and Sarit is in the north, I'm in the center, we are waiting for response of Iran. We wanted to make sure that you have the correct information of what's happening in the front lines, mainly in the northern border, where everything is expected to explode in the following hours or days. We don't know. And who is better than having an excellent and brilliant former IDF intelligence officer who is running a center on intelligence from what's happening in the north of Israel, to be able to provide us with the most accurate information and updates, and obviously information that we probably don't see in the media and could help us understanding the big picture and the challenge that Israel and the allies of Israel have in the upcoming days. So first of all, thank you, Sarit, to be here today. I know that you are requested to speak around the world, and you've been in the US last week, so maybe you can even share what you have seen there. And we'd love to hear from you, really, on your perspective, what's happening right now, what is expected to happen, the role of Iran supporting all the region efforts to destroy Israel at this stage, and what we expect to see in the following days. So thank you very much. I will just say to everyone that is an opening conversation. We're going to have 40 minutes today. Feel free to add any question that you want in the chat. You have also the Q&A that you can ask questions. And if we have a question that's relevant for the ongoing conversation, we're going to ask it immediately. And if not, we're going to wait the end of Sarit's presentation. So thank you very much and welcome everyone to this briefing.
Thank you for having me. I want to begin for a short description of a current event starting from 10 days ago that actually brought us to what Sasha described. And Sasha, I want to thank you for describing the situation the way you did, because framing is extremely important. One of the things that I find very weird is that I see in the Israeli and world media statements that Iran and Hezbollah are not interested in escalation or are not interested in war. And for me, as a person who is speaking to you from my bomb shelter at home, while we have daily attacks of Iranian drones and rockets that I can feel from my balcony, I don't understand these statements. I think that Iran and Hezbollah are not interested that Israel will fight back and protect itself, but they are definitely interested in war. And we can ask questions of how long this war is going to be, what kind of war it is, how much munition they are going to use, which munition they are going to use, or they are using already. But we cannot say they are not interested in war, because we are already having war over here in northern Israel on a daily basis. Yesterday, 6 Iranian drones crossed from Lebanon, launched by Hezbollah in my area in the Western Galilee, injured 19 Israelis. Only one of them was intercepted. This is another day at the office. It's impossible to live like that. Now, going back to 10 days ago, part of the situation of the daily fire coming from Hezbollah, there was a regular Hezbollah attack against an IDF base in the highest mountain in the region, Mount Hermon. And Hezbollah claimed responsibility, as it is doing to most of its attacks against Israel in the past 10 months, and even published a map with the location of what they targeted exactly. But what exactly happened is that one of these missiles, which was a relatively heavy missile, Farak 1 of 50 kilograms, landed below the mountain, right below the mountain in a Druze town. and killed 12 Druze children. Immediately when Hezbollah learned that these were Druze children that were killed rather than Jewish children that were killed, it published a denial and blamed Israel that the blast in the Druze village was caused by an Israeli interceptor. This proven to be wrong since IDF found debris of the missile, of the Iranian missile that was launched by Hezbollah. Why denying? Since Druze are living in Israel, in Syria, and in Lebanon. In Lebanon, the leader of the Druze community for now supports Hezbollah. I'm saying for now because he changed his mind during the years many times, but for now he supports Hezbollah and he supports the war that Hezbollah is conducting against Israel. In Syria, it's exactly the opposite. The Druze in southern Syria are completely against Hezbollah and they fight against Hezbollah presence in Syria. There are other Druze next to the Israeli border which are more supportive of Hezbollah, and the Druze in Israel are completely committed to the state of Israel and they also serve in the IDF. The Druze have a reputation of those you should not mess with, I'll put it this way, very brave fighters wherever they live, and I think that Hezbollah was interested in not getting into any conflict with the Druze in Lebanon and even with the Druze in Syria, and that's why it denied the attack. But responsibility was claimed, debris of the missiles were found, and it was proven that it was a Hezbollah missile. This incident of launching of missiles, heavy rockets to Israel is a daily incident, but this time the outcome was tragic, and Israel had to respond, and Israel responded with the killing of the member of the Shura Council, of the Jihadi Council of Hezbollah. Jihadi Council is kind of the high level of the military council of Hezbollah, highest level of the commanders. This specific figure, Fuad Shukur, is one of the founding fathers of Hezbollah. I hope the connection is okay because that's the best I have from the Galilee here.
Sorry, you're fine on my end, so.
I am okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, because we are used to problems here in the Galilee. Anyway, Israel had to retaliate, and Israel retaliated in killing one of the founders of Hezbollah, a good friend of the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, and a person who was involved in the past in killing American soldiers in Lebanon back in the 80s, and during the years in terrorist attacks against Israel in 2006, in the kidnapping of the soldiers, and during the current war in the daily shooting against Israel. He was killed in Beirut, in the Hezbollah suburb in Beirut, which is named Dahia. And this was actually the first time that Israel is attacking a Hezbollah target in the Dahia. The previous one during this war was killing Salah El-Aruri, who was a senior Hamas leader, and he was killed at the beginning of the war. But Israel was very careful from attacking Hezbollah in Beirut since the war started, and maybe I would say even Hezbollah was very careful from attacking Israel in Tel Aviv the same way. A few hours later, there was an operational opportunity, which is very, very rare, to kill Ismail Haniyeh. Ismail Haniyeh was one of the heads of Hamas that is responsible for the massacre of October 7th. And Israel declared right after the massacre that all the leaders of Hamas that are involved in the massacre are supposed to die. That's what should be done to every terrorist, and trying to understand and think about Osama bin Laden, it's exactly the same. We will hunt them until we'll kill them. It was an operational opportunity since he came to participate in the ceremonies of the new president of Iran after the previous president was killed in a helicopter crash a few months ago. So this is really something that doesn't happen every day, that you know exactly where he's staying, but somebody killed, Israel is blamed for doing that, the guest Okay, in the Middle Eastern culture, my guest, I am responsible for his security. And if somebody killed my guest, he offended me and he actually offended my honor. He dishonored me. And this is a very good reason to retaliate, even though we can say that the Iranians don't really care about Hamas leaders. They are very good to use and throw, but not good friends. And they use them with the campaign again in Gaza. It was very convenient for the Iranians that to cultivate Hamas as another proxy, but for interests, not because there is love over there. After the two killings, the messages that came out of Hezbollah and the messages that came out of Iran are pretty similar. Both are saying that there will be a retaliation against Israel, a painful retaliation. Both are saying that they are not going to tell us how and when. Both are saying that there may be an involvement of more proxies of Iran in this retaliation, like from Iraq or from Syria or from Yemen or West Bank or all of the above. And both of them are committed to that. I can tell you that just before this meeting, I saw a propaganda video of Hezbollah to its own audience in Arabic that describe again the capabilities of Hezbollah. And the video was actually not focused only on the rockets, which a minute and elaborate the capabilities of rockets of Hezbollah. It was focused also on Radwan brigades, which are the elite unit of Hezbollah that received the mission to invade into Israel once they get the order. They were fully deployed before the war on the borderline. IDF announced that it succeeded in pushing them away due to thousands of attacks that it carried out during the current war in South Lebanon. And yet, I can tell you as a resident of the North, we are very much worried of the scenario that there will be an infiltration, maybe not invasion of a few thousand, but there could be a try to infiltrate with a few hundred from the Lebanese or from even the Syrian border. These are options on the table. I'm not saying that this is what they are planning. I truly don't know what they are planning, but this is an option. Before we continue to talk about all the capabilities, just a few words about how the current war look like. And I want to share screen with you for a moment, and I want to give you really a little bit, because we are short in time, a little bit of information. I'm doing this this way because that's the only way to do it from laptop. The map that you see is the map of the evacuated communities. People, when this war started in October 8 in the north, when Hezbollah started to launch rockets and mainly anti-tank missiles and drones against Israel, people packed their suitcases and left. They didn't wait for government orders because they were afraid of Hezbollah invasion, of this Radwan Brigade's invasion. And today we are in a situation of 43 communities that are evacuated. That's 60,000 Israelis. And these areas are under fire every day. And you can see the amount of attacks monthly is pretty stable. During the war, a little bit up, a little bit down, but pretty stable. And it was also pretty stable with regard to the targets. About half are military and half are civilian. Even though I can say that in the past few weeks, we have seen a little bit of a raise of Hezbollah targeting more civilian targets. What is changed is this. We see more shooting.
Sarit, can you just explain on the slide before what is an attack? It's one rocket, more than one rocket. If
Yeah,
you can just...
I'll do that in a minute. Just finish the sentence. What you see here is a raise in, or increase in the amount of attacks to non-evacuated areas. As a retaliation to elimination of commanders, of Hezbollah commanders, Israel killed until now 40 Hezbollah commanders, including Fuad Shukur that I've mentioned. But you can see that on the right side of my slide that you had 10% of the attacks in June and 20% of the attacks in July were to non-evacuated areas. It means that I run to the shelter much more times than the beginning of the war. It means that I hear the sirens around me many, many times during the war. And since you ask, Sasha, let's look at that. Each attack can include a few tens of high trajectory fire, meaning rockets, maybe 200, maybe 30, maybe 40, maybe 80. Could include 1 or 2, as I mentioned, 6 UAVs. Could include 1 or 2 or 4 80 tank missiles, anti-tank missiles, which has nothing to do with tanks. They are launched against everything. These are the numbers. So just as an example, everybody were talking about a drone a few weeks ago that exploded very close to the American embassy in Tel Aviv. One drone, we had 1,000 drones over here in the north, either surveillance drones or kamikaze drones, and we had 7 casualties by these drones. And this is becoming a huge problem because of the terrain, which is hills and valleys, the drones fly very low, and it is really difficult for Iron Dome or F-16 or whatever is being launched against them to shut them down. Anti-tank missiles cannot be intercepted by, actually they cannot be intercepted, period, by nothing. So we don't have a defensive answer with regard to the anti-tank missiles, and these are launched against homes. Like half of the homes in our most northern community, Metula, are damaged by anti-tank missiles, mostly by anti-tank missiles. This is, every launch is a hit. High trajectory fire rockets can be intercepted by Iron Dome, but because the interceptors are very expensive, we don't intercept Iron Dome that is about to fall in open area. This means, and north is a lot of small communities, which between them there are a lot of open areas, and the main roads, if you want to go and buy milk in some of the communities, you need to go on the main roads. The main roads are considered open roads, open areas. Iron Dome is not intercepting the rockets that are about to fall on the main roads, and we already had 2 civilians that were killed, 2 parents in one of the main roads in the Golan. Yesterday incident was a hit in the main road in the Galilee, very close to where I live. This affects the daily life. It means that tens of thousands of Israelis every day are running to shelters, and not all of them are finding shelters. We don't always have shelters. We have very, very short time to run for shelter, because if you live up to 10 kilometers from the border, you have 15 seconds to run for shelter. This is definitely not enough, and it's definitely not enough if you are driving at that moment. These are the amounts of rockets in the hands of Hezbollah, the general amount. You can understand that what Hezbollah had used until now, it's not even the tip of the ice of what it truly has, and the colors match in these 2 visuals, meaning that in red over there, this is the mortars. They are for very short ranges, basically to the areas that are evacuated and a little bit further than that. But all the others is all the others, and they can be launched to various ranges in different types of missiles and rockets. We believe that a few thousands of these are accurate. Hezbollah made a project to PGMs, precision guided missiles. They took stupid missiles, they replaced one component with another, and that way they became much more accurate.
Sarit, I have a question here related.
I think I can stop
the numbers,
here.
No, the numbers looks very afraid. Obviously, more than 200,000 rockets targeted at Israel. It looks very, very dangerous. Are they able to fire all these 200,000 rockets, because it's based on the launcher? So what is the quantity of launcher that we know, or we are able to identify? Because I think the game is to target the launcher, not the rockets, probably.
Show you a picture. This is what you say, a good question. I have a slide. So here I have a video. Hezbollah is doing me a favor, publishing a lot of information of its military capabilities. This is a video that was published by Hezbollah like 2 weeks ago of how these rockets look like. They can either be on a truck, on a mobile launcher, they can be on a launcher below the ground. And the launchers are, not all of them looks like that, of course, but some of them look like that. This is 32 rockets that can be launched at the same time. And I can tell you that I already heard salvos of a few tens of rockets at the same time from my home. And it doesn't sound lovely, I would put it this way.
We see it on the ground, so we like from this video, we see that really well hidden as well.
They're really well hidden, sometimes in these forested areas, orchard, I don't know if you can recognize, but there are also olive trees. It means that it is considered private territory. It means that UNIFIL cannot get into these places or would not get into these places. And sometimes the launchings are from the houses. Hezbollah already published during the current war launchings from houses. IDF published launching from houses, each of them. After, by the way, a publication that we used and we published, we echoed it, of launching from a school, they stopped publishing where they are launching from, and they did this blurring that you can see over here of the area they are launching from. Can't hear you, you are muted.
So I was saying we have a first question here from Sean that is asking about how did the IDF miss, or I don't know if it missed, but the Iron Dome missed probably the Majid Shammer massacre and the rocket landed here. So maybe you have an answer to that.
I'm sorry to tell you, Iron Dome miss all the time. This is my answer. Nobody publishing the percentage. Iron Dome is amazing. It is intercepting rockets every day, but it is also missing rockets every day. And especially when the rockets are launched from behind the mountain and against a very high up mountain, the terrain is really difficult for interceptions. That's why you see a different performance of Iron Dome in the north rather comparing to the south. The south is flat. It's easier. The north is much more challenging. You have hills and valleys. This incident specifically was, just as I've said, below a very high mountain there. There are huge gaps, like a few hundred of meters between the town and the army base on top. We have seconds to intercept, sometimes very few seconds to intercept. This is extremely challenging. This rocket was launched from 10 kilometers from the town. This is very short range, and I can tell you that, you know, everybody talked about what happened in the Druze town, but if I take, for example, a town named Kiryat Shmona, which is the biggest town in the Galilee and the biggest town in the evacuated area, and the biggest town in the Upper Galilee, this is 23,000 people that are evacuated, and almost like twice or three times a week, I get their pictures of rockets that hit in the town. Houses, kindergarten, school, soccer field. This is almost daily sights, and I can send you the pictures, except this town was empty because it is 2 kilometers from the border, and Majd el-Shams is closer to the Syrian border. And the people there live a normal life, but this can happen. I know that as a mother who lives here, when I participated in the graduation ceremonies of my kids now at the end of the school year 2 months ago, I felt that we are at risk, that if something will happen, the instructions are to lie on the ground and to put your hands on your head. This is how we live in the past 10 months, except eventually it killed people. It killed people in a way that it's not the first time that it killed people. We had, these are 12 children, but actually we had 12 more civilians that were killed since this war started by the various munitions of Hezbollah.
And may I take you back now to the different scenarios that Israel should expect in the next hours, days, or weeks? What we should expect to see, and how Israel is being equipped, probably also with the support of our allies, to defend the north and the center in this case as well.
I want to clarify what will happen in the next hour. I'm going to surprise you. Is not the issue. The issue is what will happen after the next hour. That's the biggest question. Okay? That's my biggest question, and that's the biggest question of the people that are living here. Because it's a huge question for us. No, I'll put it this way. The situation that we are in since October 8 is already a strategic situation that needs to be solved. And it's, as I've said, it's already war, and we cannot ignore that. We cannot ignore that. We cannot say, okay, tit for tat, Iran will respond in a limited way, which is a scenario like maybe a few more. Maybe the defense systems will be extremely successful. I'm not sure, because the difference between now and April is that if Iran and Hezbollah will retaliate as they promised at the same time, this would mean challenging the defensive systems, the aerial defense systems of Israel and the rest of the partners, because, as I've said, Hezbollah is launching from a very close distance, in opposed to Iran that is launching from 2,000 kilometers away. So to intercept drones that have 6 hours to get to Israel, and even ballistic missiles that have 12 minutes to get to Israel, this is better than intercepting barrages of rockets that have seconds to get to Israel. So we don't know what is going to attack and how much damages are going to be caused. But the biggest question is, what will happen afterwards? Is the whole world going to support us in protecting ourselves in a situation that has been going on for 10 months? Because, as I've said, the incident with the Druze children is a tragic outcome of a situation that is lasting in the past 10 months. We knew this was coming and it will happen.
We have Chris Schneider asking here, and obviously it's a good question. Does Israel have the necessary defensive weapons, laser defense, rocket system? And I don't know if you are able to answer that, but people are worried about us. So if you have any answer related to that.
As far as I know, the laser is not operational yet. As far as I know, other than Iron Dome, there are a few more different types, Arrow, David Sling, different types of aerial defense systems. But this is, when you are dealing with war, expect the unexpected. It's not going to be 100% defense. And even in April, it was not 100%. So we don't know what the outcome is going to be. It's important to have the partners here. It's important for operational reasons, for the fact that truly they help in intercepting everything that was coming in April. And I believe they will be very helpful this time as well. But it is also very important to have the partners in the psychological level. There is a psychological warfare over here. That's why they are keeping us tense, and Sarah said that yesterday. And it's extremely important that all this pressure is being put on Hezbollah, on Iran. I want to see this pressure continue afterwards to make sure that Hezbollah will cease its fire and disarm in South Lebanon, because, we used to live as neighbors to Hezbollah. Until October 6, I went to the border every day, and I saw Hezbollah a few meters away from me. I took pictures of them. They took pictures of me. These were Radwan Brigade's military operatives, and this is not going to happen anymore. We are not going to enable that. Our brothers and sisters in the south lived for 18 years under these rockets attacks, coming and going every few weeks, few days, few months, and eventually they were butchered. We are not going to have the same fate in the north. This is not going to happen.
We have a question here from Shai about the 1701 UN resolution and the role of the UNIFIL, and what the UNIFIL should be doing and is not doing, and what is the role of the UN, and what Israel did to push back Hezbollah from the border. And the last part of the question is about, is there a possible solution that is based on an agreement, or that's not a possibility, and mainly in the optics not of Israel, because we know that Israel is looking for this agreement, the optics of Hezbollah, what they're looking to do.
I think that the basic interest of Hezbollah is, which is also the basic interest of Iran here, is to preserve the war of attrition. Preserve the 60,000 Israelis that are evacuated without paying any price. Now, they did pay a price. As I've said, 40 commanders of Hezbollah were killed since this war started, about 400 military operatives. That's not too many, but it is a number. And about 6,000 or 7,000 targets were attacked by the IDF since this war started. Yet, these targets that were attacked in Lebanon are close to the border, are in the areas which are close to the border. And the strategy of the IDF was to try to push the Radwan brigades away from the border. But how long would it take them to come next to the border again once they are capable of it, once nobody is truly monitoring what's going on, once nobody is shooting at them because there will be a ceasefire? This is what I'm truly worried about, which can give you already an answer to what I think about 1701. And I can read like a small example of the daily reality. This is a sentence a tweet that was published by UNIFIL maybe 2 hours ago. Despite the challenges, UNIFIL continue its crucial operations in South Lebanon. Peacekeepers from 49 countries carry out over 400 daily activities aimed to decreasing tensions. We remain committed to upholding Resolution 1701 and emphasize the need for diplomatic solutions. What 400 activities are they doing? We have 400 rockets being launched almost every day or every 2 days in total. There is, a huge gap between what UNIFIL says it is doing than between the reality on the ground. And the reality on the ground is that Hezbollah is capable of shooting that many munitions in an area that they shouldn't be in the first place. Solution. 1701 is not a solution. Maybe it's even part of the problem. The only diplomatic solution is a diplomatic solution that will make sure that I'm safe. That make sure you heard probably the dogs in the background, and there is a family just outside of this shelter, and children, and I don't want to find the terrorist in my living room one day. I want to make sure that Hezbollah is incapable, not deterred, not interested, not all these terms of intentions, incapable of sending his terrorists to my home. This is what we want over here in the north. I think it's a legitimate demand. And the only way to do it in a diplomatic solution, again, I'm not sure that it will happen, but the way to do it in a diplomatic solution is to make sure that there is a deadline to the disarmament of Hezbollah, not withdrawal, and that there is an effective monitoring force, because UNIFIL was ineffective and Lebanese army was ineffective. And they were ineffective not because they are incapable. They were ineffective because they are not willing to clash with Hezbollah, each of them from different reasons. And to tell you the truth, I totally understand their reasons. Any monitoring mechanism should be willing to clash with Hezbollah, since Hezbollah is going to continue to deceive and continue to lie, and it is not going to disarm voluntarily from South Lebanon. It's not going to happen. They will sign an agreement and they will not implement it.
I have 2 questions here that I will ask both of them, one from Jeremy and one from Lisa. Lisa is asking about Iran playing a strategy game with different proxy, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis this time. And it looks like the Hamas, Iran sacrificed Hamas for the big revolution. And will they now try to sacrifice Hezbollah, or they will enter a direct war with Israel?
That's the $1 million question. I truly don't know. I'll say 2 things around that. First, well, we thought that they cultivated the proxy militias in the Middle East in order not to be involved directly. And all of a sudden, they were involved directly in April. And I think the incident in April is a good example for us to understand how much we don't understand the Iranians. Because allegedly it was completely against the logic. They could use proxies, but they decided to attack Israel directly. The second thing that I would say is that maybe they found a third way, which is not exactly sacrificing Hezbollah, but creating, as I've said, a war of attrition. They already gained achievements. Hezbollah, by the way, is also have an interest in this, because it shortened in its way. When you see all these leaving from Beirut airport, you understand that it is shortening its way to take over Lebanon completely. And taking over Lebanon completely is part of their religious ideology. Wilayat Faqih, loyalty to the supreme leader, that the cleric is the ruler. That's the ideology. So controlling below the ground, below the surface, like what is happening today, this is not their aspiration. This is not the true ideology. So maybe it is helpful, to create this situation. The mission of Hezbollah is not to bring its people to prosper. It's to bring its people to fight, to jihad. That's the mission. Okay, each martyr of Hezbollah is branded a martyr on his way to Jerusalem. Is considered a martyr in the eyes of Hezbollah. That's how they are branded. Yeah.
We have a question, and I want to be careful of the time, so we cross the time. But one question from Jeremy that is asking about is it an opportunity both for the pro-Western coalition to end for once Iran regime and especially the nuclear threats? Do you think that this is the way, and you've been in Washington, D.C. last week, that legislator looks at this opportunity in time of history when some have been publicized that Iran is one step before the nuclear bomb?
Well, unfortunately, not because of my visit. In my visit, I was mostly speaking and they were mostly listening. But I can say that in general, I don't feel that the international community truly understands what we are facing, unfortunately. And international community is very committed to assist Israel in defense, but I'm not sure it is committed to assist Israel in offense. And one of the questions that I got during the years many times is when Israel will attack the nuclear capabilities of Iran. And I never understood the question, why Israel should attack the nuclear capabilities of Iran? It should be a global mission. So I don't see that coming yet.
Yeah. Then we have a question from everyone in Israel in this webinar to close the webinar. When is going to happen, Sarit? Do you have an answer for us?
It's irresponsible to answer this question. I truly don't know. It's really difficult to make plans. We made the plans in the family for the next 24 hours under the working assumption that all of them can be cancelled. Many things were cancelled here in Israel. Various stuff that we had, ceremonies, parties, whatever. And others are still ongoing. Like I went with my son to a pub on Saturday evening. And it was like a regular evening, like, a little bit of an illusion that everything is okay.
Yeah. And I have a question that is my question. Before we close, why we don't see Israel launching a preventive war operation, especially as a Soviet state that is under threats of such real threats that we hear in the media by Iranian top leaders, Hezbollah leaders. Why we just wait and not launching a preventive war?
Because we need the assistance of the international community, as I've said. That's why. This is not something that should be launched by Israel itself. It should be a project or a campaign. It will be held by everybody together. And I hope that in the future, something will change in the approach of the global community, the international community.
Thank you.
And the West.
So because we need to end on time, I just want to conclude by first thanking Sarit for everything that you do, because you are all over the world. You speak every day to present your region, the northern part of Israel and what's happening there. But today is not just the northern part, it's every part of Israel. We had Hamas supported by the Iranians, the Houthis that attacked Tel Aviv recently, and Hezbollah, of course, in the north, and other subgroups that belong to them. So thank you, Sarit. Just to say, if you're interested to be in a relationship with the Alma Institute in the north, to host Sarit for webinar, for briefings, and even she can travel around the world. You all have my email because you've been invited direct by mail. So reach out to me, and we'd love to put you in touch with the Alma Institute, which is an incredible institute to really provide information about what's happening in the north. We
also
hope
welcome to visit our website. Israel-alma.org. All the information of the research is over there.
Yes, and really follow Alma on social media. You can see everyday updates of what's happening on the ground, especially on Twitter. So on X, sorry, to really know what's happening in the north. And really, on behalf of everyone, we wish to the people of Israel, to our best ally in America, a safe next period. We hope everyone to be safe and better days for the world. So thank you everyone to be here. And I see someone asking here to close if we can send the PowerPoint presentation to people by email. We're going to discuss with with Sarit what we can send as a follow-up from this conversation. So thank you everyone for joining this briefing.
Thank you.